the support and resistance lesson. This is one we kind of highlighted in some of the forming the game plans and chart reading lessons from last week, and we're going to give a couple of quick examples on spotting support and resistance. So we have this PRTA. Hey there, Carl. How you doing? We're just getting started here with this support and resistance lesson. And in this first example with PRTA, we can see here this green line. This was support in the name. It had broken down, and it's now acting as resistance. And we can see this bull flag or base forming down here near support. So this is one where we can see very clearly this resistance area at 50 where it hasn't been able to break. Where on the flip side, for months, the stock had supported 50. Once it breaks that, now it's starting to act as resistance. So these are things we want to be able to spot. And this is where you can help to find more defined entries in your trade. So for now, we can see for the last few weeks now, PRTA has not been able to break above 50. Every time it gets up there, it starts to reverse. So this is a simple example of trying to spot support or resistance in a name. We have another example with this MYGN. We got another more defined bull flag that we can see. You can see very clearly 24. There's a seller there for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 attempts now. 24 has held down as resistance. And on the support side of things, we can see for the past month or so, 22 has been supported by the stock. And you can see more recently, maybe now 22 has. So the buyers are stepping up while the sellers are staying at that 24 area. And that's where we look to buy through these bull flag breakouts. We want to buy above 24. And if we're wrong, we know that anything below 22 would mean we're wrong in the trade. And that's what we want to get out. So this is something when you're going through your watch list, like we go through the Dow 30 like we did last week, you want to look to find those key areas of obvious support and resistance. You can even see in Caterpillar here, this area of resistance in 240. And eventually the stock broke out and went for a 20-point run. And if you look at where support was, about 20 points lower, you can see that breakout being very close to the measured move of this pattern. So you can see that this was about a 20-point range in the stock. And it goes a little bit higher. It's never going to be perfect to the T, but you can get the idea of when you spot these support and resistance areas and you see these flags forming, typically the duration of that flag or the width of the flag is a good barometer of what the expected measure move can be. So if you see a 20-point flag in a name, you should expect somewhat of a 20-point breakout in time. If you see a 10-point range, expect a 10-point breakout. So this is one of the main things you want to do when you start to scan, is to find these very obvious support and resistance areas so you know when to get in the name and also most importantly when to get out. Just like this Travelers here, we can see that that's another example of support, and the stock was holding this 180 for months and months. Once it starts to break that to the downside, if you were long this name, this is when you'd want to be getting out and taking profits or taking the small loss to move on as support is now breaking. So this is one of the things you want to do when you're scanning, for this example, is to find one on your own, find very clear support, very clear resistance, draw those lines out and make them have those lines, line up as best as they can.